Hey y'all, this is Courtney. I am James
Hi.
Roy, and this is the Noise Date Night Edition, a show where we review our weekly date night movie dates,
Yeah.
and we also talk about how much we love and appreciate each other for all that we are. Mostly me to Courtney because Courtney's awesome. Um, but today we will be talking about Cry Macho, not as our primary movie, but we do have a new aspect to discuss. We'll be covering my debut as a coach for the local Pee Wee football team,
Mm-hmm.
and Copshop is the movie we went with. If you listened last week, we were torn. That was the movie that we are reviewing,
Mm-hmm.
and then we will preview next week's movie. But to kick us off, I have been assisting with the defense for the Junior Marietta All American All Star Junior Pee Wee Division II
Are they all
football
American
team.
All Stars?
In my eyes, they are.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that was their official title or not.
It's a mouthful.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I volunteered on a whim. I am the only coach on the team that does not have a kid on the team.
Not weird at all.
Not weird at all. No, one of the kids was like, "Aren't you Lucas's dad?" And I was like, "Who is Lucas? I have no clue." Do
Babe,
I,
is there something you have to tell me?
do I look old enough to have a child? I do. I mean, I could, but I mean,
You're
I don't.
26.
I am
A
26.
10-year-old kid, though.
I found out today that I am old.
Mm.
Someone told me that, but no.
You're not old, babe.
It was a fun experience though. Out here in Marietta, we played our first game up in Corona,
Mm.
and we won 13-0. And as a defensive assistant, that was a big win for me. I like the way the kids did out there. They really were into it. The other team outsized us by a little bit. They had more people and they were a little bigger.
Yeah.
But they played their hearts out and they got the win, which was what
Mhm.
mattered. Courtney was there and she can tell you that it was hot. It was noon.
Yeah, it was, it was pretty warm outside. I had to go get an umbrella, and for us Californians, we use umbrellas to block us from the sun. Not really for rain. No, I'm just kidding. No, yeah, but it was warm, to say the least.
It's like one of the many uses of an umbrella for those of you who think they're only for rain.
Mm-hmm.
But I
Yeah.
thank you for being there, babe. I thank you for your support
You're
because
welcome.
you didn't have to show up.
You were on the sideline drinking your Americano.
Getting ready, getting the kids hype.
Iced Americano. Starbucks in hand. Not sponsored.
Not sponsored. Um, but that I guess brings into the next point of our podcast, which is to talk about Cry Macho.
They should be crying.
They should be crying. Yes. Clint Eastwood is how old? He's 91.
91.
Clint Eastwood should have stopped acting years ago
After $1 Million Baby.
and producing.
Maybe
and
Trouble
really-
with the Curve.
He should rest on the money that he's
Gran
made.
Torino.
Yeah, maybe. I just
Have you seen any of these?
I've not. Well, I saw parts of $1 Million Baby.
Okay.
I was a little young at the time to watch it, and then I never really got to see it. Same with
'cause I was about 16 when I saw it, maybe 17.
yeah.
You were kind of young, yeah.
So I was
that's
like
true.
11 or 12.
James is younger than me, if you didn't know.
So yeah, but so the reason that we bring it up like this is we've come up with a new system, a new caveat, as no sponsorship here as AMC Stubs A-list members. We get to see more than one movie a week, and it doesn't change our budget. So if at all possible, if a movie rates so lowly as to say we would give it a rating of 0,
Yeah.
I would say that it's not worth reviewing. So we'll tell you how garbage it was, and then we'll just see another movie and review that one legitimately. And so this is us telling you that if you had money and Cry Macho was the only opening, I would just go buy a candy bar or something. I wouldn't.
Yeah. Save your money. Just wait till it's on a streaming service or
Should I
on
tell? Should I tell? I
TNT.
mean, I legitimately fell asleep for the last 15 minutes of the movie.
Oh, I slept probably for an hour of it, like the whole
Yeah.
middle.
And like, so the parts that she fell asleep for were more boring than I think I fell asleep for the plot resolution.
Yeah, you did. Like I woke up and
She woke
everything
up and
was
caught that.
resolving, and you know the good things were happening. Everyone was reunited with their loved ones, and then he woke up and was like, "What did I miss?" I'm like, the actual ending, but it's okay.
No, yeah, I mean,
He was able to guess what happened, anyways.
I was able to guess. I also, going just from the preview, I think we covered this kind of last week. Where like Clint Eastwood's name was on it, so I knew it wasn't going to be good. Um, it mainly what did it for me was the fact that he's 91, and so he was playing like a past his prime cowboy, but he more came across as older than he was supposed to be for the role. If that makes any sense.
At one point, he himself needed to take a nap,
Yeah.
and I was like, "I'm with you, Clint. I'm also going to take a nap."
But I don't want to turn this into
And then
a
I did.
into a rain on Clint Eastwood's parade kind of thing. He's a little old for that. But all in all, I just
All the Clint Eastwood movies I have mentioned previously are worth watching.
yeah, but not this one.
No.
And there was one he directed that I saw. I was the one who picked it when we were underway. I think it's like the 1310 to Paris or something like that. I mistook it for like the 110 to Yuma or something.
Oh, the 310 to Yuma.
Yeah, but
So good.
I was like, this looks like a good
Such
movie.
a good movie.
And it was a movie about that guy who like stopped a train stabbing in Paris, and Clint Eastwood wasn't even in it, and it was an awful movie.
Really?
It was meant to tell a heroic story, but he made the main character look kind of like a tool,
Mm-hmm.
and then made me like the guy less. As someone who's in the military, he made him look like the worst kind of military person, and I couldn't stand it. But that's all that to say. I put my shipmates through that on an underway and ruined 2 hours of their life, and I am still sorry for that. But so my expectations were set.
Forgave you.
But I guess on that note, we can get into talking about Copshop. All right, so we watched Copshop. Copshop is a how would you describe it? It's like a
comedy thriller.
comedy thriller, shoot 'em up.
Action thriller.
Gross amounts of action. The surprisingly to me, right, the storyline was actually quite. It pulled you in. It's one of those ones where you're like, I don't know what's happening, but I'm interested to see what happens next.
Yeah, I think the music and the pace is really good.
Yeah,
for the most part.
And you would think Gerard Butler had a heavier hand in it, but actress Alexis Louder and Toby Huss I thought did really good, along with Frank Grillo. I think it's Grillo. It's probably Grillo. I'm Hispanic. I should know this. But I thought it was a pretty well cast movie. Even there was a lot of characters that did well, but so surface level, just kind of like looking at it without spoiling anything. I thought it was a worthwhile movie.
I thought it was a pretty good one.
I would have gone to see it. I wouldn't like go back and watch it repeatedly. It wasn't like a end all be all great.
No,
movie.
But if you're just like bored and there's nothing really in the box office besides this, it's definitely worth going to.
Well, and my expectations were not high, and they were exceeded. So
agreed.
That was.
I think coming off Cry Macho, it actually made it.
Anything could
so
have done better. I could have watched Schindler's List, and I would have been like happy to see it.
That's like a good movie, though.
It's a good movie. Okay. I don't know how to describe it. I'm like a long, drawn out movie that's like not necessarily exciting. Like Schindler's List is like objectively good, but like
maybe like Unbreakable.
Maybe yeah, something like that. I don't know. The movie it would have taken a lot for it to be worse. Like maybe The Room or yeah.
I didn't watch
with
that
Tommy Wiseau.
Oh,
you're tearing me apart, Lisa.
I did see The Artist though.
I never saw The Escape Artist, or is it The Escape Artist? This was James.
It's just The Artist. I'm pretty sure.
I don't know.
It's so funny.
I need to see that one.
It's so weird.
No, my brother was obsessed with Tommy Wiseau for the longest time. They had a Tommy Wiseau like tree topper for Christmas.
Cult fan.
Yeah.
That's really creepy.
But anyway, to get to the point of Copshop, if you haven't seen it, I'd go see it. I mean, if you got some time to kill, I wouldn't be.
I will say there's a lot of like vulgar language, like
It's a rated R movie. So.
Yeah, that's like the worst part of it, but just giving you a heads up before we just put our stamp of approval.
Exactly. If you just want to see some action and you're okay with a rated R movie, this is the one. This is it. Like of all the movies that are out right now,
Mm-hmm.
aside from like Shang-Chi still reigning number one. This one pulled, Cop Shop specifically only pulled like 1.5 million
Mm.
so far this weekend. So not an amazing showing.
I think for people who are not into horror films, which is exclusively out right now because of Halloween, Cop Shop has some, potential.
It offers you something that's not common for the time frame,
Mhm.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, before we carry on in this podcast, as you know, it's that time. Spoiler alert. Courtney, would you care to assist me in delivering this spoiler alert? I feel like I hog this bit. I want you to have a hand in it.
All right. Well, the scene opens up. It's this guy driving in a beat up, shot up cop car.
Oh, well, I was trying to finish the spoiler alert.
Oh, sorry. Spoiler alert.
There we go. Okay. So now the scene
I thought
opens
you
up with
were
this guy
telling me-
driving in a beat up
Okay.
cop car. No, I want you to describe the plot though, because I feel
I
like
thought that's what you were telling me to
No,
do.
yeah, I'm sorry.
I'm so confused.
I wasn't very clear with my words.
Hashtag marriage. Am I right?
No, yeah, but I love you.
Love you too.
But let's get into the plot now with the spoiler alert in effect. What's up,
Yeah, babe.
What's going on with the
Am I
plot?
able to proceed?
I will allow it.
Okay.
So beat up cop car.
Right. So his name's Frank, right? His name is Teddy
So it's Teddy in the movie.
in the
but
movie, so I'm just gonna call him Teddy.
Yeah.
Teddy is driving in a beat up car, cop car. It's been shut up. He's wearing some 70s get up, so it made me a little confused on the era, the time, but it is current
his
time.
hair's really long too. It's weird.
His hair is super long. He kind of looks like Frank from Vanderpump Rules, if you know what I'm talking about.
I don't,
Wait, is his name Frank? Oh my gosh, I just called him Frank. That's his real life name. I'm talking about Peter. Peter from Vanderpump. Anyways, and so he's driving, and clearly it's like some type of chase. They're trying to find him. He's on the run for something. We don't know what. All that to say, then we jump to like these cops who are buying burritos at some truck or Mexican food or something, deep fried stuff, and they're like, kind of comedic. They're clearly in the middle of nowhere in a town where probably nothing really happens. Like no signals, no light signs of life anywhere really, except for this random food truck in the middle of the desert.
I believe it's called Gun Valley. It's like
Gun Valley.
Gunstock, Gun Valley, something like that.
Which is probably like on purpose.
On the 15, if you will.
Copshop on the 15. Anyways, and so yeah, the main cop, he's like, oh, I just bought this gun for my daughter at this burrito truck shop, and
It sounds like something straight out of Texas, where he's like,
so weird.
I went to my favorite food truck and they sold me a gun.
Yeah, and it just kind of tells you like that this is a small town, and so of course the female cop, which her name is Val, and I'll just call her Val. She's the lead, the other lead with Gerard Butler's character.
Well, she's really the lead. I mean, I don't.
Yeah, I thought she pretty much carried the movie.
I feel like it.
And so she's just kind of like, really, you're giving her a gun on her 16th birthday? Okay, cool. Then they get a call to respond to some type of like chaos at some hotel or something like that, casino. I think they're in the like Las Vegas, like outer skirts of Las Vegas, basically. And so they roll up, they respond to the call, and there's just like pure chaos. People are just like beating each other up, like security guards, party goers. It looks like a wedding gone wrong.
Like
it's a very
Vegas
weird
wedding.
Yeah, it's like a Vegas wedding gone wrong, and it's a very like obscure scene. And then all of a sudden, this guy just comes up and he just starts yelling like, "Arrest me!" And then he just punches Val.
Yeah, no, he's like, "Sorry, I didn't mean to punch you that hard." I'm like, "You just punched a cop."
Yeah.
Dude.
So clearly he was trying to get arrested. So she arrests him, puts him in his holding cell, and is like, trying to question him and saying like, "What did you do to get arrested? Clearly you want to be in here for what?" And of course he's not saying anything.
Well, and so it takes us back to
the abandoned car.
The abandoned car.
Yeah. So now we go back to the abandoned car because he did in fact abandon the car.
And walked all the way.
And these cops find it like from a different precinct, and they come
were
find
state
it.
troopers, weren't they?
Yeah, state troopers probably. Yeah. So they come up, they find it, and they're just like, over their radios like chatter. They're basically talking about this car, and so Val is like interested in the car because she feels like it has to do with Teddy, because he wasn't really saying much.
Well, because he had a gunshot wound.
Yeah, he had a gunshot wound from a cop's type of, like, she's really savvy with gun knowledge, so she like
Exactly, yeah.
knew that the bullet, what casing was from.
Well, and so the car was shot up, the one that he abandoned.
Yeah, I said that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
No, yeah, you did say that.
Okay.
I'm
Can I
sorry.
keep going?
You got it.
All
Yeah.
right. Anyways, back to what I was saying on the plot. If you're still following us and you haven't fast forwarded, um, so these state troopers are looking at this car, and all the while we have seen like a scene of a mysterious man following up on this whole thing, right? Just in the shadows. And clearly, you know, it's Gerard Butler. If you know Gerard Butler and his vibe, you can tell it's him without looking at his face. Like, you just know. And so he ends up like ramming his car into this beat up car, and the state troopers are like, "Hey, you drunk, like you almost killed us. Like, we're gonna arrest you." So then they arrest him and they bring him in to the same police station, which, mind you, this police station is the only thing in like a 20-mile radius. There's like nothing else there.
You're pretty well isolated.
Super isolated. And so Gerard Butler finds himself in a cell across from Teddy, and it turns out like he reveals himself as somebody who was hired to kill Teddy, because Teddy is involved with a lot of bad people, and he made a deal with the FBI and is now on the run from
typical
presumably the FBI.
Typical mobster takes FBI deal
Yeah,
movie.
like, yeah, he takes the FBI deal. He's selling a bunch of people out, big name people, and so they want to get rid of him because he knows too much.
Doesn't he describe himself as like a guy who gets people what they need to know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and like a fixer, and he was just like, no, I just like to.
I'm an architect. He like tries one of those things where he tries to give it a better name because
he's like a
it
con
doesn't
man.
do it justice.
Yeah, basically. And Gerard Butler's character is a hitman. So there you go. So you've got these two guys across from each other in the cell. Obviously, that whole like banter back and forth is kind of funny. There's just like some random guy that's also in the cell with Gerard Butler, and you know, he's got this timer on his watch, and so he's like telling Teddy like, you better just give up. I have this much time left to kill you, blah blah blah, and all this stuff. And then finally the timer goes off, and then I had to step out of the movie theater. So if you want to take the rest of the plot.
The timer goes off, and he's talking to this guy. He's like, "Yo, you don't got much time. I don't have much time. My boss is getting antsy."
Mm-hmm.
At that time, the other drunk guy in the cell wakes up,
Mm-hmm.
and he is he's not given a name. I'd say if there was a name that described this guy, it was Chad. This dude got up and he was ready to just fight.
Really?
He just like got up and was like, "Hey man, wow, I'm gonna need like an aspirin." And being in a community at work where you say something like that, that's very obvious. People will dog you for it. He says something like, "I'm gonna need an aspirin to get over this headache," and then he like tells him, "Well, you know, it's bad for your liver." Gerard Butler's character does, and he's like, "Oh, of course it is." Huh? And they get into this thing, and finally Gerard Butler like basically belittles this guy, gets him to come at him, and then just crushes him, just like
Yeah, he
beats him up.
nearly kills him, and which is obviously a ploy to get the officers to come down and unlock his cell so that he can, you know, turn on the officer and escape and essentially kill Teddy and do what he was contracted to do. Because there seems to be a big bounty on Teddy's head, which we find out later on that more people come into play for this. And so the cop that comes in to check on the DUI person, the other drunk person, you know, Gerard Butler ends up like knocking him out, and he's the sergeant of the precinct. And so then Val comes in and she's like, put the gun down, right? Because he ends up taking the officer's gun in hopes of shooting Teddy. And so Val comes in and gets him to put the gun down. There's a few points like leading up to that where she's interacting with her fellow officers, and they're like doing this Russian roulette with their guns, and they're taking out all the bullets and putting in one,
And she never reloads hers.
and she never reloaded it, so you just kind of assume that Gerard Butler is like savvy enough to know that she doesn't, and he just kind of like lets her live. So obviously he's not in there as like he's like one of those anti-hero heroes,
Well,
you know,
because her hand is shaking,
he's bad,
and
he's a killer.
the only explanation for it is that he knew her. She said she wasn't nervous, so the only explanation is that the gun's not weighted properly.
Yeah, so she probably realized that too as well.
Probably.
And so, you know, her coworker, his name's Pina, who she was like messing around with down before she heard all the ruckus of them knocking out the sergeant and things like that. And so she locks him back up, and, you know, she's trying to get more information out of Teddy. So Teddy starts giving her all these like stories about where he was, what led up to that, kind of like his whole deal in the FBI, and how the cops that were transporting him somewhere ended up turning on him and wanted to kill him. And then the FBI kind of came in and they had a big gunfire going on. And so he ended up escaping. And so he's like telling her this story to validate what he's saying, to kind of show some, trust between the two. And so she calls in for these two guys to go check it out. So then we flash forward to like her getting in contact with an FBI liaison. They don't really know who she is.
Well, she's been all over the news because to this point,
Yeah.
there's this looming case where the state AD was dead.
Yes. And so all the while that's going on in the background in the news. So then you've got all the police officers in the office and they're all kind of supposed to be doing their jobs. And there's one guy who's supposed to be processing evidence. And so as this is going on, he is like just acting really shady. And then he starts getting like text messages about like, do you have my drugs? And so he goes into like the evidence room. This is another cop. His name's Hubert. He goes into the evidence room and he starts tampering with it, switching out like the cocaine things or drugs. And then one of his buddies comes in and is like, hey, what are you doing? Like, hey, I'm really, looking out for you if you need to talk. Kind of like insinuating he's been through hard times. I don't really know what, but
I think most people, especially in those kinds of lines of duty, can tell when someone's been in, and he did like the bro thing. His coworker came up and was like, hey man,
I'm
if you need someone, I'm here for you. I won't ask you to
Yeah.
like tell me what's wrong, but
Yeah.
like I'm here. I'll have
like
an
he
ear for
kind of,
you.
he kind of senses like he's a little off. And so he keeps getting like random phone calls, random text messages. So you can tell he's doing something on the inside, but you don't know if he's on Teddy's side or if he's on Gerard Butler's side or if he's just on his own team. You
Yeah.
really don't know. But you know
can't
he's
tell
like
now.
scheming and plotting to, do something shady basically. And so as they're processing like Gerard Butler's character, he's come in as a John Doe because he's obviously not giving up his name. And so Val starts to look more into who he is because he's like, well, maybe he's connected because he wants to kill him. Who is this guy? So she's looking him up, and it turns out like the other cop was like, oh yeah, Hubert already got information on him. And she was like, wait, what? So that was obviously the red flag to her that Hubert was compromised in some type of way, unknown capacity. All the while, the sergeant is up in the infirmary area recovering from his jaw being punched in, and the drunk person is recovering from literally almost getting beat to death by Gerard Butler's character.
She actually had to intubate the drunk
Yeah,
person,
and that
right?
was actually kind of a cool scene because she was just like,
I don't know if intubate's the term. She cut like a hole
she
in
did
his
say
neck to like
intubate.
give him air.
Yeah, stick a tube in his throat or whatever.
I did
Anyways.
this in Army recruit training. It's like, no, you didn't.
Yeah. So then all of a sudden, this guy comes in with balloons and into the police station, and the balloons are just pause before the person comes in with balloons. The main lady who's been doing all the coverage for the DA that was murdered, she's the person that Val calls and lets her know like, hey, I've got this guy named Teddy. He's telling me all this. And so she's like, oh, okay, yeah, no, we don't know what you're talking about. And she hangs up, and clearly she knows exactly what she's talking about because everything he said turned out to be true. He was an informant. The FBI like turned on him, and it was just a big mess. So now they're cleaning it up. So now she's like, this lady knows too much. We need to do something about it. That's what she says. And then some random guy comes in, and they're looking up all the affiliates to Gerard Butler's character because they figure out who he is. His name's Vidic. He's an assassin. And he's wanted in X amount of places and all these things. And so then their database is bringing up like people who are affiliated with him. And randomly there's this guy on the screen. And then this guy,
Lamb.
Anthony Lamb, that's the guy on the screen.
But he's going by Tony now.
He goes by Tony. And so he comes up with this balloon bouquet and he's like, I have a balloon bouquet for Hubert. So clearly he's connected to Hubert. And then he just ends up like shooting up all the cops in the precinct. And then Hubert comes and it's like, okay, clearly they're working together. So now Val is like hearing all these gunshots and she's like basically like knows she's the only one left in the building that's not compromised. And so she is naturally running down to where the criminals are because she's there to protect and serve and make sure they don't get out.
Well, that's also her best point to hunker down because it's a bulletproof
and it's
area.
a bulletproof area. Yes. So she like changes the code to get in so that now she's the only one that knows the code to get in. And she, puts herself in. Well, while she's like doing all this, she ends up like shooting back and she ends up ricocheting a bullet into herself. And so it's just like those comedic things where it's like she literally shoots herself.
Literally shot myself.
And she's the rookie. This is the thing. She is a rookie. And so they just kind of like, rag on her for being a rookie. So Anthony Lamb comes up and he's, this well-known serial killer basically. So he sees Gerard Butler and he's just like, hey man, what's up? Like, you're in here, you're in here. And they're just kind of bantering back and forth. All the while, he also is in pursuit of killing Teddy. So clearly, there's probably multiple people trying to kill Teddy at this point because he's probably got a big dollar sign on top of his head because he's outing all the high-end people to the FBI. And so, Anthony Lamb and Huber are trying to get into this bulletproof place, all the while, like, Gerard Butler and Teddy are going back and forth against this, across from the cells, trying to get Val to, like, let them out and to help and all these things. And she's just kind of, like, slowly bleeding out. So at this point, she doesn't really know who to trust.
But she knows Gerard Butler's character is the bad guy.
Yeah, in her mind, because he is the assassin. Exactly. And Teddy's the victim. He just got caught up with bad people. And so she's there to protect Teddy. And so she ends up giving the keys to Teddy and is like, here, you need to go get the first aid kit for me because that's the only way I'm going to survive so I can, like, patch myself up. And so he's like, okay. She was like, and here's my gun. And this was just given to me yesterday. So clearly that tells us she just started the job, like one day on the job. And so you need to give it back to me. Okay, cool. So then she kind of gives a backstory about her grandfather, how he was recruited for, like, the Nazi army because they invaded, was it Africa?
So there's a point where she says bullets first, questions later.
Mm-hmm.
And then she said it was on her grandfather's helmet. And the way she describes the helmet is the way that Nazi Germany described their helmets. It was like she used the German word for a helmet.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, wait, your grandfather's a Nazi, but you're black.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like having trouble computing. And she was like, I'm going to give you a history lesson. Maybe you'll take it with you. But like, they were in North Africa,
Yeah, and so my grandfather really had no choice but to fight alongside them, basically, otherwise be killed. And so that kind of just shows you, like, the kind of person she is. Like, she's so, like, about her job. She kind of reminds me of, like, Hobbs in Zootopia, like the little rabbit, because she is such a petite woman, Val, and she's, like, really pretty,
but
like, really good at her job. Yeah.
She knows what she's doing.
Yeah. Anyway, side note, not a Disney plug. And so she gives the keys to Teddy, and so Huber and Anthony Lamb are, like, on the back end trying to, like, sledgehammer their way into this bulletproof bunker. And of course Teddy, he finds out from Val that his family was in fact killed, and so that was kind of his last thing that he was, like, living for. And so now he's just livid, mad, full of rage, wants to have revenge on Anthony Lamb because he's the one that actually killed his family. And so he goes out there with no intention of coming back to help Val, but with every intention to avenge his family's death, and he goes after Lamb. And so, a few moments later, and it's like, Gerard Butler's like, dude, I told you he was not going to help you. Like, you need to give me the keys. She was just like, no. So then he ends up, like, just uncuffing himself, and he's like, hey, like, I was just trying to build trust with you. I could have literally let myself out this whole time. He also probably could have killed her when he had the chance, when her gun wasn't loaded that one time.
Exactly, yeah.
And so he kind of proves, like, hey, I'm really not here for you. I'm only here for Teddy. And so she's like, okay, fine. Gives him the keys. Then he leaves. And so he's in pursuit of Teddy. And then all of a sudden, those two cops come back because they were the ones investigating, like, the area that Teddy told him to. And it was just such a sad moment because
one of them was the one that was confiding in him, like, hey, talk
bro,
to me
I'm
if you
here
need.
for you. And he was like, I'm a dad. And so, of course, they're just casualties in this gunfire war, basically. So now it's like all these bad guys are fighting against each other in the in the police station. The whole movie is shot in the police station, pretty much. And so Huber ends up dying, and then Gerard Butler's character comes out, and he starts, like, going after Anthony Lamb, and he starts going after Huber, and then finally it's like him and Teddy, and he sees Anthony Lamb because he ends up, like, getting him, and he tells Teddy, like, hey, you can finish this parlay. And he's like, what? And he's like, that's the pirate word for, we're, like, for one moment we're on the same side because we're after the same person or whatever, same enemy. Then he ends up, like, shooting at Gerard, and so then you don't see Gerard, and you don't know if Gerard is dead or you don't know what happened to him. So he ends up, like, killing Anthony Lamb, and then he's like, okay, everyone's dead in my opinion, so I'm just gonna burn down this police department and not go back for Val.
But he makes a show of throwing away Val's gun.
And he throws away Val's gun, and he lights it on fire.
Outside of the, like...
Yes, outside of the bunker.
Cell.
Yes, where she was left, bleeding to death.
Because he still thinks she's there.
Yeah, because he still thinks she's there. So really it just proved that he is a terrible guy. And you're just like, oh, come on, Teddy. We wanted you to be good. But he's not.
We were rooting for you.
And so then he goes up to the top floor where, like, the desks are in the cubicles. And it's just, like, blazing fire behind him, like down by the bunker, and then he just pulls out a sandwich and starts eating.
Well, to be fair, he had made a point that he was hungry the entire time he was in
Oh
lockup.
yeah. That was kind of like a comedic thing. Like, can I get some food? Is there any food here?
But he pans over and he sees the trauma kit
Yeah,
out.
the trauma kit is out, so clearly
It's
Val
been used.
is out and it's been used. And guess who went back for Val? You guessed it, Gerard Butler.
Who says
Never
bad
trust a
guys
man
can't be
named
good?
Teddy. Okay, named after a bear. So then, she's like, "Oh, Teddy, surprised to see me" type vibes, and he was just kind of like, "I was gonna come back and help you, I promise." And she's like, "What? When you were done eating your sandwich? Really? Okay, Teddy." So then they start getting to like a gunfire, and her old coworker that was killed through all of this, like there was like a shell casing on the floor, and
Well, but before that, so they
yeah.
have the whole scene where earlier in the movie, Teddy's character had seen the armory, so he runs out of
Oh
bullets
yeah, so
pretty
he
quick.
knows where the armory is. So
he runs up and grabs
he
an
runs
AR.
up, and she's out of bullets, and she finds that last casing and is like, "Thanks, Pina." And so you were like, "Oh, that one moment was meant for this."
She even does like a cool little Russian roulette trick where she
Mhm.
like puts the bullet in and just spins the.
Yeah, I will say this whole like action fight scene was pretty good. And up until this point, you're just like, are they gonna get out of the burning building that's happening around them?
Because it's fire
Because
spreading
it's
pretty
on fire.
quick.
Yeah, and so they end up like fighting to the death essentially, and then all of a sudden that lady that's cleaning up the FBI mess comes, and she shoots her, and you're like, okay, well now she's here, and she's like,
But
really?
she's wearing a bulletproof vest, so
She's wearing
like,
a bulletproof vest, so she's
it's a shotgun.
totally
She gets
fine.
kicked back.
Yeah, and then Gerard Butler's character comes out and kills her, like pretty fast, and then you're just like, okay, he's still alive. There he is, and
Yeah.
then he comes up and just kills Teddy right off the bat, like no mercy, nothing.
Teddy's
just
like, give me a
over
second,
it.
I need to.
Gone. So then it's just him and Val, and he's like, okay, let's get out of here. So then they walk out of the precinct, and she had already called in for backup. So she was like, anybody within 20-mile radius is going to be coming.
Fire department
Fire
rolls up.
department rolls up. Yeah. And Gerard Butler's character just gets into it like a detective cop car and just drives
Takes
away.
off, yeah.
And there is one point in the movie, well, Anthony Lamb, the serial killer, is like the psychopath killer, is like waiting outside the holding cell. He just starts singing like this song just randomly. And he's obviously like crazy and demented. But it's like kind of funny because you're like, this is so random. So then when Gerard Butler is driving away, he turns on the radio and it's the song.
Well, and also, so when Val's driving away in the ambulance, she has them pull over, kicks out the
Because she
paramedics.
hears the police chatter of like, man in pursuit, man in, an unmarked cop car is on the highway 15. And so she knows it's Gerard Butler's character, and she just cannot help it but want to go after him because she's like all for justice, which I love it.
And so it was kind of weird. They drew a connection between Riddick, Vidic, and Val.
Mhm.
Vidic was Gerard Butler's character.
Mm-hmm.
But it was weird. They drew a connection between the two because she gets in the ambulance and takes the other way, kicks out the paramedics, and the song comes on the radio for her too. And they're doing this weird side by side between the two of them. And I'll tell you, putting them two side by side is just based on
bizarre.
their character development. Like they had a very quick coming together, and it was very brief. It was kind of a parlay, if you will.
Yeah, no, literally, they just put their differences
So-
aside to get rid of Teddy, and then they were like, "Okay, let me get back to what's truth and who they actually are as a person and character." And
But
then it
then
ends.
It ends.
Literally,
Yeah,
it just ends like that.
no end credit scenes, as is typical of most movies that aren't superhero movies.
Yeah, it
Nothing
was.
else to add.
I don't know. It was a bizarre ending.
It was, but I guess
I wasn't dissatisfied.
No, I really liked it. To get more into it now that we've recounted the plot
Mm-hmm.
with as great detail as we felt like giving.
Mm-hmm.
Gerard Butler, as we mentioned, is not really the main character, but how did you feel about his performance? I feel like it was pretty. I don't want to say that it was like Law Abiding Citizen.
I totally got law-abiding citizen vibes.
I got the vibes from the perspective that in Law Abiding Citizen, Gerard Butler's character is like a step ahead of everyone and knows what's going on, and his character in this movie was like, hey, like I'm the very best at this, and I'm already 3 steps ahead of everyone else. So
mhm.
like I
Yeah.
know how this ends.
I mean, I think he's a good actor. Like, he definitely has that charisma that makes you like root for him, even if he is the bad guy. He definitely has that vibe going for him, which is why I don't mind watching his movies. But do I think he had like this stellar performance? No, I think definitely Val kind of outshined him with
With good
her wit.
reason.
Yeah, no, and he was, and I don't think, yeah, and that he played his character well. He didn't do a bad job, but he also didn't like steal the film. But you're still rooting for him because you just like him,
Well, yeah,
or
because
I
I
do.
mean he's a background character. And it's weird. I think it's just weird for me and for most people because Gerard Butler's like an A-list actor.
Mm-hmm.
So you'd expect any film he's in to feature him as like top credit.
Mm-hmm.
But
But he was a producer on this, so maybe he didn't mind taking like the back seat in some
yeah,
aspects.
he probably wrote the role for himself. He was like, I want to be that guy.
I don't know.
Or
If
he
he
wasn't the
probably
writer,
like,
producer, but either way,
yeah.
it
I
was
mean,
probably written with
yeah,
him in mind.
yeah, yeah, and like highlighting a new actress who I've never heard of, and I've
And
never
it's
really seen her in anything.
speaking of her name is Alexis Louder.
Mm-hmm.
So she played Val,
Mm-hmm.
and I kind of got vibes early on from the beginning scene where she's like just at the taco truck. I got the vibe that she was really what the movie was about.
Mm-hmm.
She's like the main hero, if you
Mm-hmm.
will, and it was
I
always
think
meant to come down to
her
her.
role started off a little bit cheesy for my liking. I was like, oh no,
Hey rookie, I'm
female
like, okay,
lead,
what's
cheesy
going on?
dialogue. Not sure I'm gonna fill this movie. But then I was like, okay, it's because of the banter that takes place. They kind of have to set her up in that way in order for the banter to work later on. Because if she was so like rigid and in this role, then it would be like a little awkward. But yeah, it
Well,
did set it up for that comedic vibe, which is kind of
yeah, and they also painted her as a
which was good.
rookie, and then
Yeah.
does an expert pro 20-year vet on the force step into that wedding scene and get punched like blindsided? I think if they painted her as too much of like
I
a
was
too
really
good
talking
at
about
her
like her
job.
dialogue was more so
Oh,
cheesy.
okay, yeah, no, I agree with
No,
that. At least
I
at
liked the
first,
progression of like the action scenes.
I
I
feel
thought
like
that
her
was good.
character progressed really well though.
Yeah, it
They
really did.
they definitely got her
You
out of that.
definitely, oh yeah, for sure. And you were like rooting for her and like excited about her. I honestly was like, wait, I hope Gerard doesn't get found and then there's like a cop shop too for fun, you know? Not that it would be great, but it'd be
There
fun.
could be.
Never know.
I don't know. Based on the budget or how much this movie has brought in, I would say
Probably not.
probably not.
Maybe a miniseries.
Other major roles to cover in this movie. So Toby Huss. So
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk about Frank Grillo, but first Toby Huss as Anthony Lamb. That honestly, his character when he was on the screen stole the show for me.
Oh yeah, because he was like this psychopath killer, and you were just like, what is happening? Like,
I just imagine he got really into it, and he was probably yeah. I'd be frustrated. I don't know if I'd be frustrated. I guess the screen time was right for like the role that he played, but I felt like he just did so good with what
he
time
was
he had.
great. Yeah, it was almost like like those scenes where all the villains come together and they just like shoot the breeze.
Yeah.
Like he was totally one of those guys. Like, hey man, what's up? Oh, you're here too. Like that's funny. Like,
Whoa, dude.
yeah, I don't know. Like it was really funny, but you're like, he's obviously demented and awful, but like,
But he's trying
really
but,
funny.
But he's obviously trying to change. So in the scene where he's like talking to them from the outside of the
Mhm.
holding cell and he's talking to Gerard Butler, he goes, "Anthony, is that you?" And he goes, "I've actually I know it's been a long time, but I've been going by Tony more recently, more of a change of pace." And Gerard Butler's like, "So Anthony," and he's like, "I will not respond
to that,
to that name." And I was like,
yeah, he's got some good moments. Like those scenes are definitely for me when everything started picking up. Like when he showed up with that balloon bouquet, I was like, wait, what is happening? There's a third player. I love this.
but the best part with him, so when he's with Hubert,
Mm-hmm.
the bad cop, so they decide they're gonna go around and go through the cement to try and get into the holding cell.
Yeah.
So they're pounding on the wall that what's his face, Teddy's character is sitting in,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a point where Hubert's doing all the work because he's a bigger dude, and Anthony he turns to Anthony Lamb and goes, "Are you gonna help, dude?"
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, "Not to say what we're both thinking, but I mean, you're a bigger dude. You probably need the work anyways." And then there's another point where he like mentions like, "Dude, I just killed like two of my coworkers and stuff," and he's like getting all emotional about it, and he's like, "Dude, you're a cop. In your eyes, you're a murderer. I'm a killer. In my eyes, I'm a contracted worker or
Laborer.
a laborer." And
Yeah.
I was like, I've never heard that perspective before.
Yeah, but he literally like embodied just like a psychopath serial killer
Gerard
who's
Butler,
like kind of like a retired psychopath serial killer.
Vidic at
in
one
a way.
point says, "You thought I was a psychopath. That
Mhm.
guy's
Is
a psychopath."
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
In Gerard Butler's eyes, he's just like making wrongs right, basically.
exactly, yeah.
So.
But also, so Frank Grillo
Mm-hmm.
to cover as the other major player,
As Teddy.
Teddy. I think he plays the role well. I actually read an
Mhm.
article where he felt like the movie edited down his role and made it less than what it was.
Mm.
So I'd be interested to see the quote unquote Snyder cut
Mm.
of that movie to see what he thinks is missing from it,
Yeah.
because I felt like he did a really good job.
He did do good. I just didn't really feel. I mean, you did feel for him, and which obviously shows that he did a good job when you're like rooting for somebody. But you
The
definitely
information wasn't there.
the show got stolen by like other characters, and yeah, he could have had more of a backstory, more like action scenes, and he didn't really.
I mean, they killed off his like family. I'll put
Mhm.
air quotes around that one. I mean, it's his ex and his, I guess his like
His son,
child.
yeah.
His son is really his family, but like, I don't know. Like, it was hard to feel connected to that because it kind of painted the picture like they were both the bad guys and he was just like a lesser bad guy.
Yeah, or like not as well versed of a bad guy, but then all of a sudden he just turned on everybody and was like really bad. So I don't
Exactly.
know.
I
It
don't
was
know.
yeah, I get that his character kind of fell a little flat on that end, but he didn't play his character poorly.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
Lastly, before we do the scoring, I guess I need your expert opinion, and I'd like to know what you thought about the visuals as a, once again, film major, having worked in LA and knowing about that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
I mean, I love the good slow mo that comes into play on these action shots where you see like the bullets fly or ricochet or the Russian roulette scene. I thought those were executed really well. Um, colors were great. Like I said, I couldn't really tell like the time period. It was a little confusing, but I kind of liked it because it was just so random in the middle of nowhere. I thought that looked really cool. And yeah, overall, like I think the editing and the pace was awesome. The music selections were pretty good. They were done in like the right moments and lighthearted in the right moments. So yeah, that was great.
All right, and on that note, on a scale of 1 to 7, I will let Courtney go first because Courtney is first in my eyes, well, second to the Lord, but really high up there on my ranking list of people that I appreciate.
Mm-hmm.
And she's a woman, so
Thank you.
as a believer in ladies first, my lady will go first in scoring.
I would give it a 4.
A 4.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
So
Way better than Reminiscence.
way better, yeah.
I don't know. Did I give Reminiscence a 3.5? Because then
You
I
gave
got
it.
it.
You gave it a 3.5.
Okay,
so
then
you
I got to
gave,
go 4.5 then because it was
so
way better. Maybe a 5 even.
no, because I was gonna go with 4.5. I gave
Mhm.
Reminiscence a 4 because I wanted it to be good, and I'm giving this one a 4.5 because I did not expect it
Yeah,
to be
it
as
was
good
a
as it
nice.
was.
It was a nice surprise.
So
We were just kind of like, Cray Macho was awful. Let's just watch anything else, please. Can
no, I
we
agree.
redeem this?
So I think in the 4 to 5 range, you kind of put this movie as like a. I think the theater was pretty vital to the experience.
Oh, everyone was laughing and really into it, and it was a lot of like older couples, which I thought was funny.
Yeah,
We might have been like the youngest couple in there.
100%.
Yeah, they were probably like 50, 60 range, and they loved it.
Yeah,
They even
no.
came out and were like, that was a good comedy. There was a little much gore, but overall it was great.
No, yeah. So I thought the theater was vital to it. I'm not quite sure this one's even going to any streaming services anytime soon. I think this is there's a lot of those movies that are like from smaller studios that are like pushing the 90-day release because they're like theaters are important because that's the only way I make money. As
Well,
opposed
like bigger
to,
money, yeah.
well, as opposed to like Shang-Chi was like 45-day theatrical release and then to Disney Plus because of the whole Black Widow thing where they're not doing direct to Disney Plus with the payment thing
Mm.
because of that's affecting their ability to pull directors now.
Yeah.
But all that to say, I think the theater is pretty vital to it. It just came out, so you have plenty of time to go see it.
Yeah, go check it out.
I'd give it a look. Yeah.
Again, I will say there's a lot of language, so
Yeah, 100%. Not for the kids. Leave them at home. Get a
Mm-mm.
babysitter.
yeah. All right, what
But,
are we watching next week?
Yeah, on to next week, I guess.
Mhm.
So next week we will be watching Dear Evan Hansen. That's the big movie coming out this next week. It's my pick this week. So this past week was Courtney.
Mhm.
And so we saw 2 movies this past week. I don't think we're gonna see 2 this time. I feel like Dear Evan Hansen's gonna be pretty all right. I can't imagine it will be that bad. Dear Evan Hansen's a movie. Looks like it's gonna be about a guy who's all alone, and another loner signs his cast. The guy writes letters to himself, and then this guy takes his letter and uses it as kind of a suicide note.
Mhm.
And so this guy navigates the world of people thinking that he's the best friend of someone who he never met.
Mhm.
And I think it's a really good concept. I know it's based off of a play that's done really well on Broadway.
Mhm.
The controversy around it, I guess, is that Ben Platt played the role on Broadway,
A while ago, though.
And if you read into it, he is a young looking guy, but certainly it took a lot of makeup and shaving regularly to make that happen, because he is certainly not of high school age, and I think it's not uncommon for actors and actresses to play down in age. It's happened a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the big controversies is that his father's studio is making the movie, and a lot of people feel like that it's nepotism. And I asked the same question that a lot of y'all are asking, which is, this guy played it on Broadway. Why is it such a big deal?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the big things is there have been plenty of Broadway shows that had movie adaptations where the leads still had to audition, and a lot of them didn't get recast, most of them. But Ben Platt didn't audition for the role. He was just handed the role. It's just like, hey, you're going to be this guy. So I guess we'll see after we watch it. I feel like it seems like he does a pretty good job from the previews. He fits the role.
I mean, there's like mixed emotions, because they're like, he's too old to be playing the role. You could have literally casted some up and coming actor who could sing and be more believable, if that makes sense.
It's an interesting fall for Ben Platt, because I remember when Pitch Perfect, the first one, came out, and he was Benji, and he was like, that guy who couldn't get into the Here Comes Trouble group, and then found his way in, and the real redemption story. But now he's like the bad guy. I'm throwing air quotes around that one. I don't know. I feel like a lot of people are casting him as the bad guy right now.
Yeah, because he took the role, and they think he should have just like let somebody else take it that was younger and more up and coming. But I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. But so far, the reviews love the music. So we'll see how it is. I don't know. I
don't have a lot of experience with like watching musical adaptations, but I can't imagine that a musical that was well received on Broadway could have bad music or a bad review if it's done right. I mean, I could see it. I could see how it could go poorly, but I don't think it will.
Yeah, I think just the believability that he is in fact in high school is
going to be
some
a big
people's
thing.
issues already. Yeah, with pre-screening.
But on that note,
all right.
She has been Courtney, my lovely wife and favorite person to do podcasts with. I have been James Roy, and this has been the Noise Date Night edition. If you want to find us on Twitter, it's Noise Date Night. If you want to find us on Instagram, it's The Noise Date Night. And give us a like and a follow. Check us out on Spotify, Amazon Music,
or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
All those good places.
Mm-hmm.
And let us know what you think. Give us some feedback if you would like.
Yeah, let us know if you saw Copshop.
Let us know if you saw it and what you thought of it.
Were you Team Teddy or Team...
On a scale of 1 to 7.
Team Gerard.
But anyways, until next time, thanks for listening. We love making it, and we hope you love listening to it. See you later.
Bye.